The Patrick David podcast interview with Tristan Tate was another great interview, just like the Andrew Tate interview, except it wasn't as long. The Andrew Tate interview was about 4.5 hours long. The Tristan Tate interview, highly recommend it. Once again, it was basically about an hour and 15 or an hour and 30 minutes long. And a lot of interesting topics. I thought it was insightful because I hadn't heard as much from Tristan, because so many of the reels that have went viral on Instagram or stuff that came across TikTok or on YouTube was really kind of Andrew Tate talking, little snippets and stuff like that. So it was interesting to hear Tristan talk about their dynamic. It seems like they really kind of grew up together, have a really close bond. I thought that was very cool, and have grown up fighting together because they were both kickboxers. And it sounds like Tristan Tate kind of retired around the age of 28 or so from some injuries and stuff like that. And so it seemed like Andrew's career lasted a few years longer, kind of thing. So that was kind of interesting to hear. Secondly, they talked about Elon Musk. I thought his views on that whole subject were very interesting, and that was basically my feelings as well. That I think it's very weird when people have critical stuff to say really about Elon, besides constructive criticism, or maybe they don't agree with him on everything. But it's just weird when they don't really kind of respect him. And I've noticed this from a lot of extremely left-leaning, kind of extreme liberals. They were kind of like these sort of fanboys, fangirls, of Elon, because of Tesla, and they, had bought into this kind of mantra that the electric cars were more environmentally friendly, which obviously most of us know that that's not necessarily the truth, just because of the way cobalt is mined and lithium, and we don't have any lithium mines here in the United States, besides maybe one or two. So it's just kind of one of those things we have to import from China, or mining the cobalt over in Africa and stuff. Is any of these processes are going to be very, very industrially intensive. And then also oil and gas and stuff like that is closer to a usable form than what they're doing, the process they're going through, to make lithium-ion batteries and stuff like that. So anyway, but I agreed with what they were saying about SpaceX. I would say SpaceX is magnitudes more efficient than most other organizations, and definitely government entities. So, the ability to, launch spacecraft, launch people into space, launch satellites into space, and all that kind of stuff like that, for a private individual is very, very, very impressive. And once again, I've heard people discount and act like that, almost like Elon had little to nothing to do with that, and little to nothing to do with any of this stuff. It's just kind of weird how people feel that way. And then the Twitter thing, it's almost like it aggravates people who voted for Biden, just because he's very boisterous about the fact that Biden is not really competent, and they really don't like that. So then they start saying he's a grifter and all this other stuff. So I've thought that was really weird, and Tristan and Patrick David, they brought that up in the podcast. Another thing Tristan said, which I've always thought was weird, was the whole abortion thing, that women are using abortion for contraceptive. And he had tweeted some of this stuff, kind of voicing kind of, anti-abortion, or not necessarily anti-abortion, but, that kind of don't just kind of use abortion as a contraceptive, which I've always thought that was weird too. I just think it's unnatural, it's weird, it's gross, it's just kind of, I don't know. And then it's funny, they didn't mention this, but if you notice, all these people that are real heavy on this my body, my choice thing, completely hypocritical when this whole COVID bullshit happened. My body, my choice. And then as soon as Biden was rolling out illegal mandates, everybody's locked down, rolling out illegal mandates that people are going to lose their job if they're not COVID vaccinated. You didn't hear a peep out of those morons. So that is one thing I definitely agree with. the Tate brothers on, this whole COVID thing. It was just complete psyop, just bullshit. And then, this whole my body, my choice thing, very hypocritical. And these abortions are just kind of weird. I guess 1/3 of maybe American women have had abortions or something, which is trippy. What else I put up? Oh yeah, university loans. That was another thing they talked about that I actually really enjoyed the conversation they had on that. It's like, you'd be hard pressed to kind of go into a bank and get all these loans for a business, even if it was just cookie cutter, like this is obvious, this works, I've already got this flowing. You're going to have a hard time getting a business loan, but you can be essentially a nobody, and they'll sign you up for a student loan, and you could rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of student loan debt. And I just think that's definitely obviously like a very, very strange thing, because I've always thought the business loan thing was certainly a very, very weird scenario. Overall, I thought Tristan Tate did a very good job in the interview. He's not as I don't want to say kind of as controversial, I'd say, as Andrew is, in the way he kind of talks and the way he presents himself, at least from what I've seen. And I don't think that's, they kind of talk about that dynamic when they were locked up in prison or whatever, that, he's more chill, he's more laid back, and Andrew's constantly like, let's get this done, let's do this, we got to get this, we got to do that. And Tristan's more kind of party, chill kind of a vibe, and that seems to balance itself out. One thing they talked about is they just kind of all have sort of joint bank accounts, the cars they own, all that kind of stuff like that. They don't really kind of think, oh, that's my car, this is your car. It's just kind of pooled together. They're almost sort of like one entity in a way, they're kind of like Siamese twins or something, because I don't know, that's the way they've grown up, and that's worked for them, and they live together. Think it's interesting, and so if you've seen my other videos and stuff, I basically kind of pointed out the fact that what they were doing was, that how they arrived at a lot of their money and stuff like that was essentially a scam. They were defrauding these guys who were online and thinking some girl was going to fly out to them and all this kind of stuff. So I certainly don't agree with all that. But 95% of what they say as far as men's help or just kind of men's advice, I definitely agree with. Definitely on the same page with a lot of stuff they say. I think it's good information. They're physically competent, they're athletic, guys, all that kind of stuff like that. I think that's, in that regard, I'm more like the Tates than I'm different kind of thing. So, it is a precarious situation. We'll see kind of what happens with them, but they sort of got tossed in prison together as kind of one unit, like they were Siamese twins. But shout out to Patrick Bet-David for doing these podcasts and, going over there to their home. They're on house arrest, so, they can't really get out and, go somewhere else for this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's definitely a very, very unique situation. Not, in a situation where, U.S. individuals, because they're American citizens, even though they grew up in London. There was really kind of no charges and stuff like that. For them to be locked up like that, that's kind of a very odd situation. And, obviously nobody from the government cared, because it certainly seems like that they wanted them knocked out. And I would say the fact that there was a coordinated attack on all their social media, and they got knocked off of everything pretty much, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, they got knocked off of everything pretty much at the same time. Which really kind of shows you the coordination of some of the social media. So going back to the Elon Musk thing, we are very lucky that Elon Musk bought Twitter and had the competency to, obviously keep the right employees and trim it up and the thing went from thousands of employees that we don't know what they were doing to, being able to be operated with 30 or 40 employees. So, we're very lucky about that. Twitter did get a new CEO and stuff, and there were some kind of concerns with her because she was on some kind of World Economic Forum sort of panel or something. So we'll see how she does, see what kind of happens. But I don't know. There's a big blowback with a lot of the censorship and other things that are going on. And obviously, it's just gotten to a point with some of this woke agenda stuff that people are no longer having it. People are just kind of over it, and while they just kind of let this stuff slide, at some point it's just too much in our face at this point. It's kind of there's a lot of blowback at this stage. So anyway, guys, did you guys see the Tristan Tate interview? What did you guys think of it? Follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam It, Hive, subscribe.